This conference will now be recorded.
Hi guys, good morning. I hope you are able to hear me. Can anyone please confirm?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so this is Bhaskar. I have 13 years of IT experience. I started my career with Microsoft Business Intelligence, and later I got an opportunity to work with Microsoft Power BI and Azure Data Factory, including Azure Databricks. So currently I'm working for one of the Indian-based company from Hyderabad, and this is briefly about me. And before starting about what what is Azure Data Factory or what is Azure Databricks and where exactly we're going to use, do you have any idea about Azure Data Factory? Any idea about Azure Data Factory? How did you know this Azure Data Factory to learn or to take a training? Anyone having any thoughts? Okay, that's not a problem. I'll take you through where exactly we're going to use this Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks. So most of you are aware of a big data. So what is a big data? So big data means if we have a very huge volume of data, then we can treat that particular data as a big data. So before big data, we have a traditional ETL tools in the market. The traditional ETL tools, what they used to do is that your main target is to get the insights on top of your business. To get the insights on top of your business. So if you're running a business, how do you know to grow in the business? How do you know to expand your business across the different regions? How do you know which brands we need to improve? So all those things we can get, all those things we can call as insights. So in order to get the insights, how usually do it previously before this big data or something else? So we used to have a traditional ETL tools. Traditional ETL tools were there. We have a SSIS, we have a Informatica, we have a data stage. So like this, we have a too many ETL tools to bring data from the business system, and we are going to save the data with traditional ETL tools, and we used to load the data. That was fine. Like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, they were very much fine. But prior 10 years or prior 5 years, they're not going to be supported. Even now, they're not supporting for handling the big data because prior 10 years, the generation of the data is very less. The transactions of the business is very less. Now, just imagine there were so many transactions happening every day. If you take a Flipkart or if you take a Amazon, if you take anything, there are so many customers are there and so many customers are having many devices, and there were many devices to generate the business data. So we need to collect all the data into one particular place. So once you collect all the data, we need to process the data to get the insights. I wanted to know average of temperature for this month. Average of temperature for this month, if I wanted to know it, I need to collect everyday temperatures. Everyday temperatures, I need to collect it. And once I collect it, then I'm going to get insights on top of this data. What is the average of the temperature for this month? That is just for 1 month. Just imagine for different areas, different months, different locations. So data is going to be more. Okay, so if we have a more volume of data processing, before getting insights, we need to process the data. So to process by using this traditional ETL tools were taking very longer time. And these tools are not going to support for semi-structured data and unstructured data to process it. So there is to support for only structured data. I'll talk about what is structured data and how it is going to be there. We'll see that. So at this point of time, I just wanted to say all these traditional ETL tools are used to support to process your business data if data volume is less. If data volume is growing like anything, then definitely these tools are not going to support. And I have come across some jobs, those jobs when I work for SSIS, they used to take even days also to complete that particular package to finish it. So if it is taking a days, then it is going to impact the business. So we need to have something else to process the data very faster. So that is what we are going to do with the Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks. So Azure Data Factory is going to process if you have a big data. Your Azure Databricks also is going to process if you have a big data. If you have a less volume of data, basically we don't require to go for these tools. But since we are moving towards to the cloud platform, towards to the cloud, definitely there are so many projects existed with the traditional ETL tools and Hadoop related projects. All are moving towards to the cloud platform by using Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks. So these two are very important for us. So how we can define this big volume of data is the 4 V's is going to say. The 4 V's are going to say is that a big volume of data or not. The characteristics of the data is this. So big data is a collection of data. Big data is a collection of data that is huge in value. If there is a huge volume of the data, then we can treat the data as a big data. So storage is a problem if you go for on-premise. If you go for on-premise systems to store your business data, nowadays storing your huge volume of data is very difficult. So I'll talk about how exactly it is going to be difficult. I'll give a little more in detail over the period of time. But now I just wanted to say, so storage is a problem. Storage is a problem if you go for on-premise systems. And that is a big data and huge in volume, yet growing exponentially with time. So daily, day to day, it is getting increased. So every day is going to increase like anything. There are many systems or many platforms that are increasing data. The data is getting increased day by day. If you take a Facebook, or if you take a Twitter, or if you take a YouTube or anything, the data is getting increased day to day. So as time increases, automatically the data is also going to be increased. So that is one thing that we can say it. And there is a one more thing. It is the data with so large and complexity also. How complexity? So depends on the complexity of the data also. We can say it is a big data. So that data should not be related to traditional data movement tools. So traditional data management tools. That means this particular data is not going to be handled by this traditional ETL tools. So these tools, if they are not going to be handled, if you're having some data, if data is not getting handled by these particular tools, then we can treat the data as a big data. Okay, so velocity, how fast you are going to do it. Once you have a storage, then processing is also very important. Processing also is very important. If you're taking days to process the data, then there is no use of processing, because you're getting insights after 1 week. You have to take the decisions. You have to take the decisions as early as possible. So if that is the case, once you have stored the data, very huge volume of data, if you wanted to process faster, then definitely we need to go with Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks. So these services are going to support to process faster. So how exactly they're going to process faster, we'll talk about it. So this is also one of the reasons. If it is taking too longer time to process your business data, so that data we can treat that as a big data. And when you're storing the data in the storages, when you're collecting the data from the customers, and definitely we are going to have varieties of the data. We are going to have a structured data. We are going to have a semi-structured data. We are going to have a unstructured data also. So the data is going to be generated by different devices. Now we are storing the data like with all these three different varieties. So because of that reason, we can call this also we can say it is a big data. So variety of the data we are having, and nowadays we are going to have a JSON file. If you are aware of JSON file or XML file, so those files we can call them as a semi-structured data. So why people are much interested to go for semi-structure, we'll talk about it at the time of talking about the different structures of the data. So veracity of the data also, we can say it is a big data, various levels of data, uncertainty and reliability. So these 4 ways are going to be related to big data. Simply, I just wanted to say, if we have a big data, how you are going to process it, where you are going to store it. So to store the big data, cloud is the best platform. Cloud is the best platform. Why people are not going for Hadoop is because Hadoop is completely on-premise. If I wanted to store the data, then you have to use your own infrastructure, your own storage, your own machines. So it's very difficult to go for run and maintenance. So Hadoop does the same thing. Hadoop handles big data processing. Hadoop handles varieties of the data. Hadoop handles faster processing also. But still, if the storage is reaching your limit, then again you have to increase the compute power. And these tools are going to support, or this ecosystem is going to support to do by writing a code. But when it comes to here, Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks, especially Azure Data Factory is a code-free ETL tool. We are not going to write the code to process the data. I have a data in the storage. I wanted to process my data. If I wanted to process my data, definitely I'm going to use Azure Data Factory or Azure Databricks also. So both, when you're going to work as a data engineer, I'm sure you're going to have both of together in many projects, and individual tools also will be there as an individual project. So some projects will be having completely ADF and some projects will be having completely ADB, and few of them are going to have both combinations, Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks. Now, I just wanted to talk about Azure Data Factory. So we are seeing that Azure Data Factory, right? So what is this Azure Data Factory? Azure Data Factory is used to process your big data. Simple words. Azure Data Factory is a tool which is used to process your big data. But technically, as per Microsoft definition, Azure Data Factory is a cloud-based integration service. What kind of service it is? It is cloud-based data integration service. There are many integration services in on-premise, but this is a cloud-based. In order to use this Azure Data Factory, you don't require any infrastructure. You don't require any networking. You don't require any physical storage. And you don't require any operating system also. So everything will be provided by Microsoft itself. They're giving a platform to you called Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is an integration service. And what type of integration service here is? It is a cloud-based data integration service. What it is going to do it? What it is going to do it? This integration services orchestrates data movement. It is going to arrange the data movements, how data is going to flow, how data is going to move. That is going to be orchestrated by using Azure Data Factory. It's not just arranging, it is also going to do the transformation. It is also going to do the transformation. So since it is doing transformation, we can say Azure Data Factory is a transformation tool, or Azure Data Factory is a ETL tool. ETL tool or ELT tool also we can say, because it supports for both of the processings. I'll give little more clarity about it. So this orchestrates data movement and transformation between what? Between diverse data sources, between distributed data sources, from distributed data sources to cloud compute resources. So that means you're having a data in a different places. Your data is distributed. The data source is diverse data source. We are going to use the Azure Data Factory here to bring into the cloud platform. So in order to do this entire processing, we are going to use Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is a cloud-based integration services that orchestrates data movement and transformation between diverse data sources and cloud compute resources at scale. This is important. How much scale you wanted to take it? I have some work. If I hired one person to do my work, then definitely will take some time. If the same work is said by multiple persons, that means the headcount is increased. So when you compare this, 3 times faster is going to be completed. So how much compute power you require to run this Azure Data Factory, we can specify at the time of runtime. So we'll see all these things, how it is going to be handled. So parallelly, we can do processing. So because of that reason, this process very faster. So let's say, for example, I have a data in the data source. The data source may be anything. I have a data here. This particular system, I'm going to call it as OLTP system. So OLTP system means it is a business system. If you take Amazon, Amazon is collecting transactions from the different regions, from different customers at different time periods. So to collect the data from the customers, to take the transactions from the customers, they will be having applications. You can order a product from the web. You can order a product from even mobile app also. So your business system is going to collect the data from the various places and you're going to have it. So in this particular place, you may have a SQL server, you may have a Oracle, you may have a file system, you may have a website, you may have a social networks. So anything that we can say. So these are all the data sources to collect your business data. How exactly they're collecting is not our job. We are not working as a application developers. We are going to work as a data engineers. So what happens is from here, our journey is going to start. From here, our journey is going to start to extract the data from this particular business systems. So who is going to extract? And once you have a data in the business system, we need to take the data from the different locations. I'm running my business across the different locations. I wanted to collect data from each and every location. And I wanted to keep at one place. So here the data is distributed. This system is a diverse data sources, we can say. The data is distributed. I wanted to bring the data and I wanted to keep it one place. So in order to extract the data from this particular system, we are going to use Azure Data Factory. We are going to use Azure Data Factory. So the process of extracting the data from various business systems, we can call it as a extraction. We're extracting the data. How exactly we are going to extract with ADF is, we are not going to write the code. It's completely code-free ETL tool it is. It just clicks and we are going to write the expressions to make it happen. So I'm going to use the Azure Data Factory to extract the data from the various data sources, and I'm going to dump the data into the destination. So this particular destination, I just wanted to say it is Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, ADLS Gen 2. So what is this ADLS Gen 2? we'll talk about it. We have a separate talk about it. For time being, you just imagine we are going to dump the data by taking data from the various data sources, and we are going to feed the data into destination. So process of feeding the data into destination, we can call it as a loading. So to load the data also, we don't require to write a code. We're just going to dump the data. So this particular stage, every project is going to do this stage. So this stage, we can call it as a data ingestion. This stage, we can call it as a data ingestion. We're ingesting the data. This is a raw data from the business system, and we are going to ingest the data into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 in the form of what? In the form of Parquet file formats. I'll talk about what kind of format they are. We'll see that later. For time being, I have a raw data here. I have a raw data, and I'm just going to feed the raw data into this particular place. Here I have a raw data, and here also we have a raw data. Then what is the difference between this place and this place? The difference between this place and this place is this data, raw data is distributed, but raw data is centrally located. At one place it is available. So that is what the data ingestion. I'm getting the data in the form of JSON file in the data source, but when it comes to here, it is going to become, we are going to make this as a Parquet file format. So why Parquet file format? I'll talk about it. At the time of introduction sessions, I'm going to talk about why we need to go for conversion. So data is going to be landed here. Once the data is landed here, then what you're going to do is the second stage of your second stage of activities. First stage is we are going to dump the data. We are not doing any transformation here. We are just dumping it into what? Lake, into data lake. In the second stage, your data source is a Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is the data source in the second stage. So in the second stage, what you are going to do it? You'll be having destination here also. You'll be having destination here also. The destination here is ADLS Gen 2. Same, ADLS Gen 2 only. How you are going to bring the data to here is, again, same data factor I'm going to use it. I'm going to use same to same ADF, Azure Data Factor. I'm going to extract the data from Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Why we need to load the data into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2? Why don't we go directly for transformation? We'll see that later. So here, the process of taking, we can call it as an extraction. We're going to extract the data. Once you extract, then we are going to do the transformation also. We are going to do transformation also. Once you transform the data, then we are going to load the data. So process of feeding, I already told you, we are going to call this as loading. We know already extraction. How we can do it practically, we are going to talk about it, extraction, and we are going to do the transformation. So why we need to go for transformation? So data is getting, all sales data is getting into in this particular place as a multiple files. I don't want to keep as a multiple files. I wanted to keep them as a single file. Your data storage is at the date and time level, but I don't need this level. I wanted to take the data at date level only. So transactions will be collected at the date and time level. The granularity of the storage is date and time. But when it comes to this particular place, I wanted to store the data at date level. In every day, thousands of transactions you're going to happen. You're going to get it if you take a measure. So if I consider what is the total sales of today, then you need to combine all the sales for each and every, ignore the time period and aggregate the data at the date level, and you can say what is the total sales of that particular day. So that kind of data only I required. I don't need the leaf granularity of the data. So if that is the case, then we need to do the transformation here. We are going to do the transformation. There are various ways are there to do the transformation. In order to do the transformation, previously Azure Data Factory was not there in the version 1, is not at all available transformation. And now we are having a Azure Data Factory is also having a transformation capabilities with the help of data flow. There is a task called data flow. By using the data flow, we are going to do the transformation with Azure Data Factory itself. So because of that reason, there are so many projects completely with Azure Data Factory. And there is a one more thing is that is ADB, Azure Databricks. Azure Databricks also will be used to transform the data. Azure Databricks extracts the data from the various data sources and transforms the data by writing notebooks. We used to call them, we are going to call this as notebooks. We are going to create them, and by using the notebooks, we can do the transformation. So once you transform the data, we are going to load the data into your destination. We are going to load the data into destination. Now, what is the difference between this Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks? Prior Azure Data Factory with the data flow, we used to go with two different approaches to do the transformations. Even before data flow in Azure Data Factory, we used to do the transformation, but that is completely stored procedures. By using the stored procedures, we used to go for doing the transformations. And the second one is ADF data flow. Using data flow, we can go for transformations now. And third is Azure Databricks. There are so many projects already existed with Azure Databricks and stored procedures. Okay, so people are traveling towards to this, and people are traveling towards to this, or even towards to this also. It all depends on the on their requirement. Okay, so combination of both also we are going to have it. And when you compare the difference between Azure Data Factory and Databricks, this is completely coding. Azure Databricks is completely coding. Stored procedure is also completely coding. But data flow is not a coding. It is completely just clicks. Clicks and writing some expressions, we are going to do the transformation. If I wanted to do the SCD type 1s or type 2, we can do with all these three options. We can do with the stored procedure, we can do with the data flow, and we can do with the ADB also. But which one will be easy? This is easy because we don't require to write a code. We don't require to write a code. But I feel the second easiest way, I feel stored procedure. Okay, in Databricks, we have to do a few more things. Everywhere there is a solution, but way of doing is little different, but your target will be very much similar. So we are going to use this Azure Databricks to transform the data in this particular area. And one more difference I can say here is whatever the data flow we are having inside the data factory, that is going to handle transformation for only structured data and semi-structured data. But when it comes to here, Azure Database, this handles unstructured data also. That is the only difference I feel. And coding is one more major difference. So I'm going to take you through how we are going to use this Azure Data Factory, and we are going to see how we can use this Azure Databricks to transform unstructured data, to transform semi-structured data, and to transform structured data also we are going to see as part of this Azure Databricks. Now data is going to be landed into the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. This entire process we can call data transformation. I wanted to call this as a data transformation. We are going to transform the data. So cleansed data is going to be stored here. Cleansed data is going to be there. So this data is suitable for your business. You can use this data to get the insights, but if you try to get the insights from the raw data, you're going to get the wrong insights. So who is going to take the data from your place? You prepare the data, you make it ready for downstream systems. So downstream systems, we're having a Power BI, we're having so many reporting tools in the market. So let me expand this, how exactly it is going to be there. From here to where exactly it is going to move the data. This is a file system. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is also a file system. And we are going to store the data into Azure Data Warehouse. ADWH. ADWH. We're going to move the data into this place. So to move the data, again, you can use the ADF. You can use the ADF to move the data to here. Or you can use the Synapse SQL also. You can use the Synapse SQL to bring the data into Azure Data Warehouse, or you can use the Azure Data Factory to bring the data into Azure Data Warehouse. And of course, you can also use the Databricks. So wherever there is a ADF, you can use the Databricks in simple word. And from Azure Data Warehouse, we can move the data to tabular models. We have a models. This is one more system to have the data to do some kind of analytics here. The final stage is finally you are going to bring the data into reporting. So reporting tools you are going to have. You may have a Power BI, you may have any reporting tool. Tableau is a reporting tool, or you may have a SSRS, anything that you can take the data from here. So not only from this particular place. So this one I just wanted to say it is a model. Forget about what is model, how data is going to flow. This is the main target. To get the insights, you are going to see the insights from the reporting tools only. But who is going to give the data? You are going to give the data to the reporting persons. You are going to give a data to the reporting team. And so reporting team not only taking data from here, They can also take the data from here also into reporting services. They can take the data from Azure data warehouse also. And they're also going to take the data from this particular place as well. Directly, they can take the data. So there is each and every place there is a pros and cons. While taking data here, how it is going to be there. While taking data from here, how it is going to be there. And if data is directly here, if you are taking data from here, how it is going to be there. It's all depends on their requirement. They're going to bring the data. So this is the end of the place to give the data to the reporting team. So as a data engineer, you're going to be part of this. In the initial load, that is a data ingestion. In the second load, that is a data transformation. And we are going to load the data into data lake storage Gen 2. And you're also going to be part of this if you have a platform. So if you don't have a platform, then what you're going to do is you're going to keep the data in Azure SQL database also. I'm just saying DBs, normal DBs. You can also load the data into this particular place. You can go here and take the data to here. And from the DBs also, your Power BI is going to take the data. You can take the data in this direction also. So I have experience on all these places. How exactly it is said depends on the project or depends on the client requirement and architect solution. They're going to come up with the approach. Okay, so how we are going to handle if I have a 2-minute tables, how we are going to do with Azure Data Factory and how we can create a dynamic pipelines instead of doing with, if I have 100 tables to load the data, 100 pipelines you need to create it. But I don't want to do 100. I wanted to do only one. That one has to provide a service to the 100 persons. How can we do that kind of activities that we are going to see as part of the regular sessions? Any questions as of now? Any question? Okay, so let's move on to this. What we are going to cover as part of this particular sessions. So I wanted to take you through the content of this. Introduction to Microsoft Azure, I'm going to take you through. So what are the cloud vendors we're having? What are the different types of deployment approaches we're having as part of the cloud? How we are going to create a storage account and how we can create a resources, how we can access the resources from the Azure that we're going to say as part of the introduction. And then we are going to talk about the storages. We have a file system related storages and data lake storages we're having. These two are related to file. And we have a database related storages also we're having. Like Azure Data Factory can store a structured data. Azure Data Factory can store unstructured data and semi-structured data with massive volume of data. So how we are going to handle it, that we are going to talk about it. In order to access this storage, what are the different kind of approaches are there to access the storage? If it is a file system and if it is a database, how exactly we are going to access the data from the storage, that we are going to see. And then we are going to talk about Azure Data Factory, that Azure Data Factory, the introduction of Azure Data Factory, and what are the key components we are having, and how exactly we are going to handle this ETL processing, and by comparing with any of the traditional tool. So many ETL tools does the same thing. The only the difference when it comes to Azure Data Factory, it is a cloud-based integration service that orchestrates and transforms the data between diverse data sources and cloud computing resources at scale. Okay, so how we are going to handle it, that we are going to say, and data transformation and data movement. The first stage is data ingestion, the second stage is data transformation. These two activities are going to take care about that particular things, and we are going to say to control your these two items, to control these two persons, we need to have all these activities. To control two persons, we need to have these many persons to control them, because these are very stronger. Okay, so how we are going to control them with general activities and iteration activities? Why we need to go for iteration? If I have a too many items, I need to provide a solution for each and every item. In that case, we need to go for iterating, to loop it. And conditional is going to check a condition. I have 100 tables. How do you know which table is enabled for incremental loading? How do you know which table is not enabled for loading? How do you know the table is decommissioned for load from the loading queue? So all those things that we are going to check with the help of if condition activities or conditional based activities that we are going to see. In order to get the alerts, we are going to use the logic apps. And how do you know the pipeline is failed? You are not going to stay completely on a monitoring window. You are going to do your work, and parallelly you are going to see your run and maintenance also. So how exactly we are going to handle it? And we are going to use this logic apps to get the alert mails to the development team. And based on that, we are going to, any one of us, we are going to work on the appropriate activities. And we are going to say more 40 to 50 real-time scenarios we are going to see. It depends on my experience. I'm going to take you through that, how exactly we are going to handle. And these scenarios or these use cases are more than enough to work on any Azure Data Factory projects. And how exactly we can make it much more dynamic, how we can do the run and maintenance. I'm going to talk about it. So these are all the use cases. And we're also going to discuss about, as I said, Azure Databricks. And the main thing that we're going to say is RDDs and data frames. There's two things we're going to say as part of the Databricks. So all the setup is going to be done by Microsoft itself, and we're going to say how we can handle this. The prerequisite for this is a basics of Python. Basics of Python is required. Okay, so we will help you how we can understand understand this Databricks. It's not much difficult. It's not like Java, or it's not like a .NET or something else. It's very, very simple. Instead of writing too many lines of the code, we can write within the less number of codes. Okay, so how exactly we are going to do this? We are going to talk about it. And in order to understand this Databricks or Data Factory, basics of SQL is also very important. Okay, so if I compare with Python, is Python important or basics of SQL important? As per my experience, I have seen when they're writing a notebook, most of the times they're bringing this SQL in and ingesting into the notebook. So I feel SQL is very important for us. Okay, so basics of Python, basics of SQL is important for understanding this. I'll tell you how you can update this Python or basics of SQL. I'll help you on that. And then I'm going to talk about the end-to-end project explanation, how it is going to be there, how exactly the real-time project runs. If I wanted to move the data from one place to another place, it's not just like moving like the way you're going to do in the sessions or the way you're doing it in the trainings. There is many things are going to be happen before starting, and there are many things is going to be happen post execution and pre execution. I'm going to talk about all those details at this particular place at the end of the sessions. So this is about the content, what content we are going to cover, and if the time permits, I wanted to take you through even Synapse basics for just understanding. It's out of the syllabus, but if the time permits, I'm going to take you through the Synapse basics also, how exactly it is going to be useful for the data engineers. Okay, so that's all about it. And if you have any questions now, you can ask me. Any questions? And if you need more details, check with Sandesh. He will provide the. We are planning from next Monday onwards, not this coming Monday. We are planning on 17th of this month. We are planning as a new batch, so you can plan accordingly, and you can keep in touch with Sandesh for more details. So if you don't have any questions, we are going to wind up the session now. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining.